Take a good look at the big screen today, and you'll notice something is missing. There's a void where there used to be iron. We grew up in a time when a movie star didn't need a superhero cape or a CGI background to command respect. All they needed was a cold stare, a 12-gauge shotgun, and a code of honor that didn't shift with the wind. I'm talking about the era of Lee Marvin, Steve McQueen, and Charles Bronson. These weren't characters, they were men. And the stories they told reflected a world that was gritty, dangerous, and unapologetically real. Today, we're looking at 10 films from the 1970s that defined what it meant to be a man on screen. These are the movies that don't just tell a story, they leave a mark. If you're tired of the watered-down cinema of today, grab a seat. We're going back to the days of the real tough guys. Number 10. Prime Cut, 1972, directed by Michael Ritchie. We start with a film that is as raw as the title suggests. Imagine the Kansas wheat fields, the industrial hum of a slaughterhouse, and a clash between two of the screen's greatest heavyweights, Lee Marvin and Gene Hackman. Marvin plays Nick Devlin, an enforcer from the Chicago mob sent to the Midwest to collect a debt from a man named Marianne, played with chilling, eccentric brilliance by Hackman. This isn't your polished Godfather style of mob movie. This is rural, ugly, and incredibly tough. The 4-minute segment here should focus on the sheer presence of Lee Marvin. He was a real-life World War II veteran, and you can see it in the way he carries himself. No wasted movements, no false bravado. There's a legendary scene involving a chase in a wheat field with a combine harvester that remains one of the most suspenseful moments of 70s cinema. The film explores a world where human life is treated with the same cold indifference as the cattle in the pens. It's a movie about professionalism, about a man doing a dirty job in a landscape that feels both beautiful and decaying. Watching this today, you'll appreciate the practical effects and the lack of moral handholding. It's a straight shot of adrenaline and grit that only the early 70s could deliver. Number 9. The Getaway, 1972. Directed by the master of violence, Sam Peckinpah. In The Getaway, directed by the master of violence, Sam Peckinpah, McQueen plays Doc McCoy, a professional thief who gets out of prison only to find himself betrayed during a high-stakes heist. Alongside Ali MacGraw, McQueen creates a portrait of a man who is constantly under fire, but never loses his composure. To stretch this to 4 minutes, you need to dwell on the Peckinpah style, the slow-motion gunfights, the rhythmic editing, and the sound of a pump-action shotgun that feels like a thunderclap. This movie is about the chemistry between a man and a woman on the run, but it's mostly about Doc McCoy's competence. He knows how to handle a weapon, how to fix a car, and how to spot a double-cross from a mile away. The Texas settings are dusty and unforgiving, providing the perfect backdrop for a story about survival and the heavy cost of freedom. It's a film that doesn't need long speeches. McQueen's eyes tell you everything you need to know about loyalty and the weight of the life he's chosen. It is 70s action cinema at its most distilled and potent. Number 8. Charlie Varick, 1973. Directed by Don Siegel. This is often called the last of the independents, and for good reason. Walter Matthau, an actor we often associate with comedy, delivers one of the most hard-boiled performances of the decade as Charlie Varick, a small-time crop duster pilot who robs a tiny bank in New Mexico only to find he's accidentally stolen millions in mafia money. Suddenly, he's hunted by both the law and the sadistic mob hitman played by Joe Don Baker. What makes this a 4-minute deep dive is the intelligence of the movie. Charlie isn't a young man, and he's not a superhero. He's a man who survives because he's smarter than the people chasing him. He's a craftsman. Director Don Siegel, who also gave us Dirty Harry, brings a lean, no-nonsense energy to every scene. We see Charlie meticulously planning his escape, using his knowledge of planes, cars, and human nature to stay one step ahead. It's a tribute to the working-class hero, the guy who has been around the block and knows exactly what he's doing. The tension builds quietly, culminating in a spectacular aerial showdown that used real stunt flying. It's a smart, cynical, and highly satisfying film that celebrates the veteran over the amateur, a theme that resonates deeply with those of us who appreciate experience over flash. Number 7. The Friends of Eddie Coyle, 1973, directed by Peter Yates. Now, we look at a film that is arguably the most realistic crime drama ever put to celluloid. Robert Mitchum, with those heavy eyelids and that weary voice, stars as Eddie Coyle, a low-level gun runner in Boston who is facing a long stretch in prison. Eddie isn't a kingpin. He's a tired man trying to provide for his family, while the walls close in on him. This film is a masterclass in atmosphere and dialogue. It's filled with scenes in dimly lit bars and rainy parking lots, where men speak in a coded language of threats and favors. To fill 4 minutes of screen time, focus on Mitchum's performance. He was an actor who didn't act, he simply was. You can see the decades of hard living in every line on his face. The film shows the unglamorous side of the criminal life, the paranoia, the cheap coffee, and the realization that in this world there are no real friends, only associates. It's a quiet, devastating movie that respects the viewer's maturity. It doesn't offer a happy ending or a grand shootout. It offers the cold, hard truth about a life of crime. For anyone who appreciates the old-school way of telling a story, where the character is more important than the plot, this is as good as it gets. Number 6. Mr. Majestyk, 1974, directed by Richard Fleischer. It wouldn't be a 70s list without the stone-faced legend himself, Charles Bronson. But Mr. Majestyk is different from Death Wish. Here, Bronson plays Vince Majestyk, a melon farmer and Vietnam vet who just wants to get his crop in. When the local mob tries to muscle in on his business and mess with his workers, they find out the hard way that you don't push a man who has nothing left to lose. This movie is pure, concentrated 70s masculinity. The 4-minute deep dive should center on the iconic Ford truck chases and Bronson's absolute refusal to back down. He's not looking for trouble, but he sure as hell knows how to finish it. The script was written by the great Elmore Leonard, so the dialogue is sharp and the stakes are clear. It's a film about the dignity of hard work and the right of a man to protect what is his. When you see Bronson behind the wheel of that Ford, bouncing through the fields and taking fire, you're watching a type of action cinema that felt personal. It's a working man's revenge story, and Bronson plays it with a calm, lethal efficiency that makes him the ultimate hero for those who value actions over words. Number 5. Across 110th Street, 1972, directed by Barry Shear. This film takes us to the concrete canyons of Harlem for a gritty, uncompromising look at a heist gone wrong. It features a fascinating clash of styles between two great actors, Anthony Quinn as the aging old-school Italian detective and Yaphet Kotto as the young, by-the-book captain. They're forced to work together to catch 3 small-time crooks who robbed a mafia counting house. This movie is famous for its raw, documentary-style cinematography and its incredible title song by Bobby Womack. To stretch this to 4 minutes, emphasize the street-level realism. This isn't a Hollywood version of New York. It's the real New York of 1972, dirty, loud, and dangerous. The film doesn't take sides. It shows the desperation of the robbers, the brutality of the mob, and the exhaustion of the police. Anthony Quinn is magnificent as a man who knows his time is passing, struggling to maintain his authority in a world that is changing too fast. It's a violent, high-tension thriller that captures the racial and social friction of the era with an honesty that few films dare to attempt. It's a heavy hitter that leaves you breathless, reminding us that in the 70s, the city itself was often the most dangerous character on screen. Number 4. The 7-Ups, 1973, directed by Philip D'Antoni. If you loved The French Connection or Bullet, this film is your next stop. It stars Roy Scheider as the leader of an elite, secret unit of the NYPD called the 7-Ups, named because the crimes they investigate carry sentences of 7 years or more. This movie is about the edge. It's about men who operate in the gray area between the law and the streets. To fill 4 minutes, you have to talk about the legendary car chase. Philip D'Antoni, who produced The Chases and Bullet and The French Connection, stepped into the director's chair here, and he delivered what many consider the greatest, most terrifyingly realistic car chase in history. There is no music, just a scream of tires and the roar of a Pontiac engine through the streets of New York and New Jersey. Roy Scheider is incredible. He has that wiry, intense energy of a man who hasn't slept in 3 days. The film is cold, it's metallic, and it feels like a punch to the gut. It's a tribute to the detective as a hunter, a man who lives by a set of rules that no one else understands. Watching this today, the sheer physicality of the stunts will remind you of what was lost when Hollywood moved to the safety of the studio. Number 3. White Line Fever, 1975. Directed by Jonathan Kaplan. In the mid-70s, the trucker was the ultimate American folk hero, and White Line Fever is a definitive man versus the machine movie. Jan Michael Vincent, at the height of his career, plays Carol Joe Hummer, a young vet who returns home, buys a truck, the Blue Mule, and tries to make an honest living. But he finds the industry is run by corrupt corporations and mobsters who want him to haul contraband. Carol Joe's refusal to just go along with it makes this a 4-minute study in integrity. This is a story about the independent spirit. When he drives that truck through the glass wall of a corporate office, it's a moment of pure cinematic catharsis for anyone who's ever been squeezed by the system. Jan Michael Vincent brings a quiet, blue-collar stubbornness to the role that feels incredibly authentic. The film captures the loneliness of the road and the heavy weight of the mule as it thunders down the highway. It's a movie that smells like diesel and freedom, a testament to the man who stands his ground when everyone else is taking a bribe. Number 2. Night Moves, 1975. Directed by Arthur Penn. As we reach the top of our list, we have a film for the thinkers. Night Moves stars Gene Hackman as Harry Mosby, a private investigator who is a former pro football player. He's a man's man, but he's lost in a world where the old rules don't apply anymore. He's hired to find a missing girl in the Florida Keys, but the deeper he digs, the more he realizes he's looking at a puzzle that has no solution. For a 4-minute segment, focus on Hackman's weary, brilliant performance. He represents the 70s hero who is starting to realize that strength alone isn't enough. The film is famous for the line, "I saw a Romer movie once, it was like watching paint dry." It's a cynical, atmospheric, and deeply intelligent thriller. The Florida scenery is beautiful but treacherous, mirroring the mystery itself. It's a film that respects your intelligence. It doesn't give you a clean ending because life doesn't give you a clean ending. It's a haunting look at the detective archetype at the end of his rope, and Gene Hackman proves why he was the most versatile actor of his generation. Number 1. Hard Times, 1975. Directed by Walter Hill. Finally, we arrive at number 1. If there is a single film that defines the real tough guy era, it is Hard Times. Set during the Great Depression, it stars Charles Bronson in his greatest role as Chani, a drifter who arrives in New Orleans and starts competing in illegal bare-knuckle street fights. James Coburn stars alongside him as the fast-talking promoter who can't quite figure Chaney out. Why is this number 1? Because it is the leanest, toughest, most no-nonsense film ever made. There is not a single wasted frame. To fill 4 minutes, focus on the fights. They are brutal, but they are filmed with a classic rhythmic grace. Bronson, even in his 50s, looks like he's made of granite. He doesn't talk about his past, he doesn't complain about the heat, and he doesn't celebrate his wins. He's a professional. Directed by Walter Hill in his debut, Hard Times is a poem about the dignity of a man who knows exactly who he is and what he's worth. It's a story about survival in a world that has gone bust, and it resonates today more than ever. It is the ultimate quiet man movie, a masterpiece of masculine cinema that sits on the throne of the 1970s. And that concludes our 10-film countdown. The 1970s didn't just give us movies, they gave us a mirror. They showed us men who were flawed, tired, and under pressure, but who never stopped fighting. These 10 films are a legacy of a time when the tough guy wasn't a caricature, he was a reality.